Consolidated Revenue Fund, now TSA, leaving a balance of 1.993 trillion. But it went further, the documents I was given, to show specific diversions of the 1.993 trillion naira. So I had to wrestle with my conscience. As a businessman, as the chief executive of a company providing services for the EFCC, of course, my first loyalty is to my company as chief executive to keep the bottom line flowing. That is money. Now, I have this egregious, heinous evidence against the same organization. What do? I had to wrestle with my conscience. I had to meditate on it. And the man upstairs, that voice I hear, told me plainly, this is your new platform. It's going to be a very difficult journey, because I always say that fighting EFCC, I have always faced, and I'm still facing at least three very difficult ordeals. That is physical threat, cyber threat, and spiritual threat. Now, but I had to choose, for sake of patriotism and because of that voice I heard, to pursue the recoveries of the monies EFCC stole. But the spirit I have in me, I start from the top. This was 2013. President Goodluck Jonathan was the president. There was no need to dance around the bush. I just went straight to the president's state, Bayelsa State. In fact, I sat with the late DSP Alamesia, showed him his home in Asoko, showed him evidence that showing that over 90% of EFCC seized from Alamesia were relooted. Alamesia looked at me, shivering. He said, my brother, are you telling me that these people that disgrace me out of office, make me put on a clothes like a woman, actually stole what they said I stole? I said, this is the evidence. It was last week, I never met his wife. After my AIT interview, I got a call. The true caller says, Mrs. Alams. He didn't register well. When I picked, I said, who? He said, this is late Alamesia's wife. I said, okay. The true caller says, Mrs. Alams. He said, I just finished watching you on TV. God will bless you. When you came to my husband's, when you came to our home in 2013, I was at home. When you left, my husband briefed me. After I finished watching you, I saw the correct spelling of your name, and I went to my husband's one of his phones, and I saw your number. So now, going back, for me to now pick up that fight, starting with Bayelsa State, and I told the governor, the former governor, the late former governor of Alamesia, that I need a mandate for me to pursue the recovery of these funds from the EFCC. I got a mandate, wrote the EFCC. EFCC gave me an appointment, I want to say December 13 or 19, 2013. I got to the office, Lamode, all of them greeted me and ushered me to a meeting with the Asset Recovery Department headed by, I think, one Iwoha. Meeting lasted for 5-6 minutes. They said, look, Uboh, we're going to send the money to you for onward disbursement to your client, Bayelsa State. We shook hands, I left. 2014, they said I would get the money before 2014. 2014 came, We're playing phone tags. The money didn't come. January, February, I felt they were dilly-dallying. So I took EFCC to court on behalf of my client, Bayelsa State. The day I filed, the governor who gave me the mandate through the Commissioner for Finance, Yabi, came out to deny me that he did not give George Uboh mandate, that he's not fighting EFCC. But the following day, he invited me for a meeting. Timi Alaibe was at the meeting. One Lorenzo Aligbe was at the meeting. And the Commissioner for Finance, Yabi, that signed the mandate was at the meeting. It was the former South African embassy. I used to provide security for that building too, Usuma Street in Metama here. The governor saw me and said, my brother, I appreciate what you are doing for my state. We need this money EFCC took from us. But my brother, you know the fear? Eh? So that was why I had to call him a coward on national TV. It's a long story, but to answer your question, let's fast forward, because the reason I had to give this preamble is because I wanted to show the frustration I faced. So even if I knocked Buhari, after I was the first person to say that Buhari was corrupt by omission or inaction on July 6th, 7th, I believe, on Channels TV, and the DSS picked me up and detained me for a while. And that was what led my own fight with Malami in Nigeria here. So, but calling a spade, I still want to say that it was the 8th Assembly led by Saraki that gave me the opportunity to bring out the evidence I had against the EFCC that nobody wanted to delve into. So it was that fateful day of August 26, 2015, when I went to the Senate led by that is Senate Committee on Public Petitions. When I went in there, Lamode wrote a letter he couldn't show up, while the EFCC lawyers came wanting to say that why am I eliciting evidence against Lamode when Lamode is not there, when Lamode himself already wrote to be given another day, so you are probating and reprobating, and they were walked out. So it was on that day, in my view, that was the day, to me, that was the beginning of the end of EFCC. Because everything going on now, nobody had the guts in Nigeria to even question EFCC until that hearing on that fateful day of August 26, 2015, when people could say, because I know I'm not going to mention TV stations in Nigeria before that 2015 August 26, that I tried to air some things and they told me, George, we can't do that. In fact, a popular newspaper owned by a man from Agbo, my place, I had a press conference. The office from Lagos sent him a message and said, leave where you are. There is an embargo on us not to report anything against EFCC. So, but I saw that after I went to the Senate on August 26, 2015, all newspapers in Nigeria, all carried the EFCC story, and that was when I knelt down and prayed to the man upstairs, I am vindicated.
At that, sorry, sir, at that point, who was the chairman of EFCC at that point?
Lamode, of course, was someone he refused to come. And that day, his lawyers, the EFCC lawyers, came to say that why should they allow George Uboh to come to elicit evidence. That was when I was given that opportunity. I showed the 1.993 trillion naira EFCC failed to remit to the federal government, that they still really. Then I went into specifics. I showed how EFCC restrained 15 bank accounts belonging to Tafa Balogun, restrained at the defunct Fountain Trust Bank, which metamorphosed into Spring Bank. When you look at the calculation of the 15 bank accounts in EFCC's own internal record, EFCC calculated it to be a little bit over 2 billion. But if you, my man, you pick up your calculator, you calculate it is over 3 billion. Okay, let's say it's inadvertence or mistake in calculation. That mistake became a premeditated crime when EFCC transferred the adulterated figure from Tafa's bank, Spring Bank, to EFCC's own bank, Access Bank. It is the same adulterated figure EFCC transferred to its own bank. This crime alone, EFCC stole 799 million naira. Now, the next day, my phone rang.
Okay.
My phone rang. Somebody was on the phone. Is this Dr. George Uboh? I said, yes. This is Tafa. This is Tafa. God will bless you. I watched your presentation. I didn't know that these people stole. I said, my brother, it's not only cash they stole. It's just that what I brought to the Senate is cash, stolen my funds. All your stocks, Ola Trade, and all of them, EFCC stole. EFCC made some properties that are 2 or 4 as if it's represented them as if it's 1. EFCC stole some properties. I elicited evidence that EFCC picked up $5.8 million from Imangude in Switzerland, but it didn't appear in Nigeria. That was why I came out to say that over 95% of EFCC's offshore seizures, particularly in the UK, they don't bring them to Nigeria. They don't even record, as you know, any law enforcement agency, your exhibit book, your exhibit record is your cardinal record. Whatever you seize from a criminal suspect must be recorded there. If it's not recorded, you have erred. It's a grave error. It's a grave crime. So a lot of things they seize from Alamisi here in South Africa, Bahamas, you name it, never made it into the exhibit record in Nigeria. Now, the vindication, of course, was that EFCC couldn't defend my allegation. It wasn't really about, see, what people don't understand is I'm not going after individuals. It's just that at the time I went to the Senate, Lamode happened to be the chairman. But really, the evidence I have cuts across. Don't forget that EFCC was started by the trio of Ribadu as chairman, Lamode as head of operations, this same Magu as a team leader. In fact, Tafa told me on that call that Dr. Uboh, anything that you found wrong with what they seized from me, hold Magu responsible. Magu was my IPO. Now, if you don't believe George Uboh, the same way God vindicates me, a year after I went to the Senate in 2016, Nuhu Ribadu and Farida Waziri had a public spat, a public fight. Farida Waziri said, Nuhu, tell Nigerians the billions you recovered, you did not document. And she's very correct. All of them stole, but Nuhu Ribadu did not document. Farida Waziri documented. But whether you document or you don't document, we didn't find the money. So they were trying to now let us know the mode through which they stole the money. One documented, one did not document. I came out again and said I'm vindicated because these are 2 former EFCC chairpersons. If you have 2 armed robbers in court and they are confessing, you don't need that, becomes your evidence in chief, not your proof of evidence any longer. So what am I saying, my brother? EFCC, the looting at the EFCC is a culture, it's systemic. Anybody who enters there gets power drunk. And why do they get power drunk? I've always said that, I've always posited that any EFCC chairman is more powerful than the Nigerian president. And why do I say that? The much dreaded FBI only has power to investigate and transfer to the DOJ, Department of Justice, to prosecute. I guess that is, even in South Africa here, you have National Prosecuting Agency. But we created this child. We gave birth to this child in error, we Nigerians.
We will get to that, Dr. Uboh, sorry here for me to, about my interjection. We will get to because when we get to this angle now, that will be what will we do to reform.
Let's talk specifics. So let's talk.
No, I mean, what you are saying is important, but we will go to the point of what will we do to reform EFCC. We will get to that point. Yes, we'll get to that point. But right now, what I'm getting from you is that the problem with EFCC did not start today. At a point, about 10 years ago, Elombah.com referred to EFCC as a criminal enterprise.
Yes, I agree.
Would you agree with that? And if so, why would you agree with that?
I agree with that in total because I have the, see, I have never in my life delved into any corruption case without what I always call overwhelming and irrefutable evidence. The evidence I have against EFCC, I have not been really allowed. I have only touched, I'll say 25%. I have 3 boxes. Nuhu Ribadu knows. That is why I made a video and sent it to Adamawa when he wanted to come out in 2019. I said, you are a thief. And he couldn't do anything to me. He knows what I have. They know what I have. EFCC even goes to other agencies. I have evidence of this same Nuhu Ribadu. If you recall, in 2005, 2006, thereabout, President Obasanjo set up Presidential Committee on Port Decongestion. About 26 billion naira was recovered from that presidential committee. Never went to Federation accounts. I have the evidence. NDLEA would arrest suspects, drug suspects at the airports across Nigeria. Of course, if you are a drug suspect and they see cash on you, they will transfer the cash to EFCC, being Financial Crimes Commission. Or most of this cash NDLEA sent to EFCC, they didn't report. On and on and on and on. So bringing a Magu who was part of the people that founded the EFCC to say that it's going to come and change things is a lie. Because even as I left the Senate committee that August 2015, you recall November thereabout, Lamode was removed. Magu came. Magu ran quickly to the House of Reps Committee on Financial Crimes, oversighting the same EFCC. And this committee was headed by Kayode Oladele, who was Chief of Staff to Lamode. He was Chief of Staff to Lamode, ran for election, won election, came to the House of Reps, and was given the juicy position of chairman to oversight the same EFCC, which is a grave conflict of interest. So Magu went there, and Kayode quickly said, tell us about what you do, EFCC does with recoveries. He said, all recoveries by EFCC from inception is intact. Anybody who says EFCC steals recovered assets is lying, of course, indirectly referring to George Uboh. The next day, I wrote Magu a letter. I have it. I thanked him for his magnanimity, for his coming out to say that all recoveries from inception are intact. But I said, my brother, I have evidence that EFCC did not remit 1.993 trillion naira to the federal coffers. So I want to say that you have mysteriously found this money. So I give you 7 days to return this money. And I wrote Kayode Aladele, I said, you have taken a position that calls into question the legitimacy of Samanyangu-led committee. Because he said a Senate committee cannot indict EFCC and Lamode. You are now bringing Magu, the new EFCC chairman, to talk about recoveries without calling George Uboh, the expert on recovery, who just shamed Lamode at the Senate. And I ran into Dogara in, I think, Captain Osa's house. And I called him aside. I said, look, what you are doing, I don't like. You cannot make Kayode Oladele, who was chief of staff to Lamode, chairman oversighting the same EFCC. That alone is conflict of interest. And the law, you are a lawyer, the law governing conflict of interest is presumed. You have to presume that somebody is in a position where they cannot be deemed to be impartial. The fact that he was chief of staff to Lamode and then coming to House of Reps to be chairman oversighting the same EFCC is presumed he's not going to be impartial. And he even demonstrated the partiality by inviting Magu to come and call into question what the Senate had decided. Because at this point, Lamode was running helter-skelter. It was Festus Keyamo that took the Senate to court to hold that matter in abeyance. So,
okay. At this point, please. At this point, have you read the memo that the AGF Malami sent to the presidential panel that is set to investigate Ibrahim Magu?
I don't.
Have you cited it?
I've read it, but I don't need to read it. I have my way of communicating with AGF.
No, the question I wanted to ask is, if you have read the memo, do you think it has incorporated your allegations against EFCC over the years, or did they omit this issue about asset recovery that have been reluted? Is it in the memo?
It wasn't specific.
Yes.
The part that goes into my main allegation against the FCC is the one that saying that Magu about recoveries. But you see, you can't. You're a lawyer. What I told people around Malami is that he goofed. And if I'm to hold any conference now, any press conference or in any capacity, I would say that the panel, the AGF, did not impress me. Because you see, even at the height of my fight against Malami, I ran into Malami, he said, George, now what for you? I didn't know you can support me. I said, see, you people don't understand George Uboh. My criticism or commendation is what I call transactional. I criticize you because you were not paying whistleblowers and you know what caused our fight. But when I heard you on TV saying that you want to set up asset management agency, I gave you kudos because I want that power. I want EFCC to be divested of that power of recovery and management of recovery assets.
Has that been implemented?
In the case of Magu, you don't take a man and detain him for 9 days. This is not a military. I've been in detention. I just finished 101 days of detention for blowing the whistle against Emefiele. So I know what it is to be in detention. And I don't think you use it. Someone has to use illegality to fight illegality.
Yeah, we will get to get to the
answer your question about the memo.
Yes.
The memo is not enough. If you feel Magu has done something, draft up charges. I have drafted up a 22-page charge sheet against Ribadu, Lamode, Faida Waziri, and Magu included. I've done that a long time ago with specifics. Charges. Anybody that is interested, come and get it. I don't need to charge you. Come and get it for free.
Yes, because
so do a memo to me.
Yes.
And use the memo to detain this guy. I will defend Magu to the extent that you have detained him. You didn't charge him.
Yeah. The essence of my question, sir, is the essence of my question is, you have a litany of charges, verifiable allegations of mismanagement of resources against the EFCC chairman. But my reading of the memo is that more attention was paid to insubordination against Magu. So it appears, would you agree that Malami's grouse with the EFCC chairman is mainly about insubordination, that the EFCC chairman have refused to carry out his instructions, as distinct from that Magu has committed verifiable crimes against the Nigerian state?
You hit the nail on the head. You see, my brother, when I talk about, I hope you know that this same Magu had been given a letter sacking him before this whole presidential panel debacle. He refused to leave EFCC because he said, if you sack me, I will bring out a damning report I have against everybody close to. And I have always said this for a long time, that any EFCC chairman is more powerful than any president, because they can always engage in what I call subtle Gestapo threats. What do I mean by that?
Blackmail.
All an EFCC chairman needs to do is go to President, Your Excellency, sir. We picked up this transaction your wife did in Dubai. Your Excellency, it looks as it's like money laundering. What do we do to this report, sir? Are you going to say, investigate my wife? Once you say no, kill it. They will give you that police look of, I know your secrets, so don't mess with me. That is a subtle threat. That is the problem. Anybody who has the power to investigate or call into question EFCC's activities in Nigeria, either they will make sure they sell you recovered vehicle. Magu just came out to say that most people in the villa and in the presidencies procured recovered vehicle. Do you think they sold it to you to make money? No. They sold it to you as Gestapo. Gestapo is either stick or carrot. So there are people they hit, there are people they appease, but they appease you at a price. So you see, this, I don't really know. Maybe I don't know what the future holds for me. Maybe when I'm gone, they may say there was a voice called George Uboh that said all these things. There's nothing I've said about EFCC that has never happened. So what do I'm tired of even talking about them. I know what goes on there. So Malami, in my opinion, I don't need to, I had my own fight with him for over 2 years. He detained me at the DSS. We have made up. We are good. I don't hold grudges for a long time, because whether you detain me or not, the records are there. So, for you as AGF to bring a memo, and if insubordination becomes the meat on the memo, we have to infer, we are not fools.
The latest information, another thing is, the latest information we are getting from the presidential panel is that last week, anyway, the point is, all of the things you are reading about this presidential panel is what we see on the pages of newspapers. So the presidential panel is saying that we have not formally served the allegations against Magu against him, and therefore his lawyer cannot be responding to what they read in the newspaper. So what do you have to say about this? Anyway, you've mentioned that Magu had been detained for 9, 10, or 11 days, and now the panel have not even been sitting against him. They simply detain him and now let him go. So are they sincere about solving the problem of the EFCC? Are they sincere about prosecuting Magu? Or do you see this as merely political gerrymandering, as many people are suspecting about 2020?
That's all I can say. You are equally a lawyer based in the UK, a civilized country. You see, when you take a jurist, a retired justice, to head a panel, he's not an investigator.
Yes.
That right there is an anomaly. Now, this jurist, now the chairman, you ordered EFCC chairman to be acting chairman to be detained. And when I said it, see, even when they say he was detained, I didn't want to speak. I put a phone call. I have my sources. I was detained there at 4 CID. I was detained there last year. I made my call. They say, yeah, Magu is here. He didn't enter the cell. But as a lawyer, detention doesn't need to be cell. You know what I mean? Once you are Liberty is restrained. That constitutes a detention. So now, as a retired justice, you have to dispense justice. Once you detain someone for over 48 hours, you know, and I know that our constitution is very clear. You give bail, or you go to court to get a court. I don't care the nomenclature, whether it's a presidential panel headed by whomever. Once the constitution is our, umbrella, the umbrella under which we all operate. Once you detain over 48 hours, you must get court order to show cause why you want to keep beyond 48 hours or charge the court. So you have now made Magu, who you have come out to say did this and did that. Now, we in the civil society, I don't care whether Magu is a murderer. Once you keep him beyond a certain time, I have to ask questions. Because you see, when I die, I have to reconcile with God. I have to ask questions. Why are you keeping this man now? You know, there's an adage in my village, a notorious thief, very notorious. He was caught, and they kept him in the market square. People going to market say, hey, they have caught him. God, they have finally caught you. They were happy. When the same people were coming back from market in the evening, they say, now this same offense will still keep this man this long. The same people. So Nigerians are beginning, particularly in the civil society, like, okay, you have told us all this about Magu, detained him for I think about 9 days. So what next? That is where they got it wrong. And to that extent, I will support Magu. Because if you really are serious, come to George Uboh. I will give you, you don't even need to detain him. I have enough for you to charge him straight to court. So that is my take on that, my brother.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, from this point, anybody who has a question can simply indicate on our device any comment, and then we'll call upon that person to ask his question or make any comment. Dr. Uboh, please, are you aware of the drama going on with the NDDC allegations?
Yes, NDDC is a matter I know very well. As we are speaking, I have taken Akpabio to court. I've not made it public because there's a motion ex parte attached. I want it looked into first, and they have not responded. So they will not say, in fact, I don't think I should go too much into it because it's a matter that is sub judice. Because when I listened, the issue of corruption at NDDC again is not a. What pained me was when I listened to the audio where Akpabio ordered that the pipeline be bombed. I did my investigation. The pipeline in Southern Nigeria was bombed and payment was made. I have receipts. I have the payment evidence, and the company that fronts for him made that payment. So after I gathered all this evidence, I took him to court, asking the court to ask the DSS to suspend him until the DSS finishes the investigation. I know he went to DSS because they called somebody I know to come to DSS as well after Akpabio left. But what happened since then, I don't know. I have my relationship with DSS, so I want the court to compel DSS to formally investigate, do the forensic analysis of that voice that I know is Akpabio's voice. I've sat with Akpabio so many times, saying bomb the pipeline and saying that useless woman, that is Joy. And he now used intelligence from this to go and lie to Buhari that Joy Nunye does not have the capacity to control the boys, the militants. That is why they bombed the pipeline. So it worked for him. So, to me, when a sitting minister engages in such acts, that is even the height of it. That is why I'm not even talking about I have the EFCC handover note. Nsima Ekere gave what is this man again that took over before Joy came? The guy that came after Nsima Ekere. I have all the money he stole with his children. I took him to what's his name? Jerry Alagboso. chairman House Committee on Public Petitions, but they didn't. So with the issue of the money that they've been spending, I have that. But this issue of ordering the bombing of the pipeline, a gangster-like crime, I shed tears and I had to go to court. So, I mean, you know, I don't know.
Nigerians understand that the President Muhammad Buhari ordered the forensic investigation of NDDC accounts, but the probe we are seeing now is the by House of Reps committee probing the accounts of the NDDC. How far is this correct? Is there a relationship between the forensic probe and the House of Reps probe? And if they actually submitted a crime has been committed, is this the right way to go about it instead of, are they really sincere in finding out what is going on in NDDC?
You hit the nail on the head. You see, I have my own experience with the National Assembly. Some school of thought will say, well, the reason why Saraki approved for you to come and give evidence against EFCC and Lamode is because Lamode picked up his wife. Well, so that is a case of, I mean, notwithstanding that the fact that I have the evidence, that in other words, that he wouldn't have dared gone that route, were not the fact that this happened. And to be honest with you, got to a point, I kept pushing the National Assembly. This Lamode matter. Yes, this guy took it to court, but let's take it further. So I have my problems with the National Assembly. I remember I did a petition against Chevron for over $4 billion. Saraki set up a special ad hoc committee on George Uboh's petition against Chevron, headed by the same Akpabio. No. Akpabio commissioned the committee, headed by Magnus Abe. And I had to take them to court because I said, look, I came here to blow the whistle against Lamode because there was no whistleblower policy. But now I'm not going to be doing this for free. Give me a letter, give me something to show that once I elicit this evidence against Chevron, I will get my percentage in line with the executive, with what our president has said. They said they will. Put it in writing, they refused. Because I know them. So I now had to go to court to compel them, to abide by the dictates of our informal. So, I'm from Delta State. I know the fraud Nwamboshi has committed at NDDC. So to a certain degree, you have a lot of interest. Of course, the Deputy Senate President is from my state, Amuagege. They say he wants to be governor too. So what you are seeing is icing on the cake. The real cake is interest. Nobody really wants to investigate anything. If you want to investigate NDDC, don't forget that the National Assembly only comes in because of appropriation. They appropriate the money. They want to know how the money is spent. They are not a law enforcement agency. So they can even do and transfer to have EFCC investigate, but they will not. Because you see, even as I talk about corruption at EFCC, I'm talking about the monies diverted by EFCC, not recovered, not remitted. But there is another collateral damage. What is that? Like this Chevron, no matter the amount of petition you write against the IOCs to the EFCC, they will never investigate. I was with the chairman of FIRS about 2 months ago. He waited for me in the office. I came in, he said, when I heard you were coming, I had to wait because, we're not getting money from crude oil. I have over $20 billion oil companies evaded in taxes. Over $6 billion directly involving that involves Fowler. I met with Ogama Mandaura, gave him the evidence. And I met Fowler in his house behind my office in Metama. One Dr. Dejo arranged a meeting. He saw me and said, Mr. Whistleblower, I know you've been chasing me. Let me see what you have. I had a 6-page synopsis. I said, my brother, if you want the evidence to back up the synopsis, I can call my. He said, don't worry. He looked at it. He said, your evidence is correct. That SPDC alone did not pay over $8 billion in taxes, but that I should hold late Abba Kyari responsible. That Abba Kyari gave him the go-ahead not to collect taxes, to stagger it within 10 years. But that's about Abba Kyari queried you that you are not remitting enough money. So how can he now tell you not to collect remittance? He said, I've told you what transpired. I'm not drunk.
Why would this involve, well, I'm listening to you now, you talk about Mandaura, Abba Kyari. What of these private individuals? Are there no institutions that will be able to say, look, international oil companies, you have not been remitting the right amount of money. We've got to force you to do it. Why would Abba Kyari and Mandaura be involved in this?
You see, that is exactly what I'm saying. That apart from the recoveries EFCC takes in that they don't pay, there are so many investigations they sit on. So if you want to really call it, if you want to look at the losses to Nigeria, in my opinion, if you do your, accounting, it is not just the money they recover that they did not remit. You can still take into account the investigations they refuse to carry out. For instance, if I have overwhelming and irrefutable evidence that Chevron stole $4 billion from Nigeria, and EFCC refuses to investigate, that should be part of the money EFCC should be held culpable for.
Yes.
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Of course, yes.
Yes. But I don't even talk about that. But to answer your question, it is the situation we have found ourselves. You have to now go and meet people. Why did I go to Mama Ndaura? I want to see FRS chairman, whatever. And please take this thing to Mr. President to see how much Fowler stole at FRS. So when people don't know what we go through.
What is Mama Ndaura in this? What is Mama Ndaura's position? I'm still curious. What is Mama Ndaura's position in the president administration? What is his post?
Well, when they say that, look, I'm not going to mention names. A former minister told me in his house, he said, George, I hope you know that none of us, all ministers, well, he said, let me speak for myself. I have never seen the president. He said, I have never seen the president. You only see Mama Ndaura. I'm not going to exalt form over substance. What do I mean by that? If a man's way of doing things is not the conventional way, that's the form, but the substance, meaning the result, is good. You see, like when they talk about nepotism, the reason I don't delve into that, whether Buhari employs it, because in US, JFK, John F. Kennedy, had his immediate younger brother, Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, as the Attorney General.
But properly appointed as the Attorney General, not as
hold on.
Not like a minister.
Hold on.
Yes.
But the reason why Americans did not cry over that is because as a team, they performed. That is why performance, substance is over form. The form is whether you are brother or not. The substance is what people, so you exalt substance over form, not form over substance. It was the same Bobby Kennedy that pierced through the Italian mafia.
That is what I'm trying to point out. What I'm trying to say
the
is,
founder of FBI.
What I'm trying to point out here is, President John Kennedy appointed his brother as the Attorney General, and therefore the American Congress can properly hold the Attorney General responsible. They can properly exercise oversight over him. But if President Buhari has not appointed Mandaura or anybody into a particular official position, then, for instance, the National Assembly cannot now invite Mandaura to ask him anything because he has no official position. So it is.
We know that you are correct. But what I'm even saying is that, let's say Buhari is performing extremely well. Would you question whether the person behind his performance is Mandaura any longer? But the reason why we are saying this is because
but the point, he cannot. That is the point. Buhari cannot perform because this unconventional method of administration cannot
that
work.
Is what I said. Substance over form over substance. If, as we speak, economy up there, the fight against corruption up there, everything up there, you will be giving kudos to Buhari, not knowing that the person doing it is even Mandaura. Because you see, this Mandaura, you whether he goes to Mandaura, we don't know the who. But if the performance is above board, Buhari will be getting the accolades, not knowing that it's coming from Mandaura. So that's why I don't want to really bother, because look at Donald Trump. His son-in-law, very young chap, Jared Kushner, came up with even the Israeli Palestinian, whatever, this engine room and all that. That's what I'm trying to say, that the issue of JFK and Robert Kennedy, because when people saw how sharp Robert Kennedy was, somebody who called all the U.S. attorneys in assistant U.S. attorneys in U.S. in the 60s, I said, look, our biggest problem is the Italian mafia, too much killings. But you are interested in going to arrest anybody who shoots somebody on the street, you drink champagne and celebrate the conviction. That there's something in the law book called conspiracy. That conspiracy is put in the law books to wipe out not individual gangsters, but gangsterism. So you should be able to now build evidence between this guy that shoots somebody on the street all the way to the capo di tutti capi, the Jongatis, the Genovese, the Gambinos. After that, he now taught them how to investigate and prosecute conspiracy cases. When two or more conspire to commit a crime, they can be charged. They don't need to know each other. So John Gatti can give order to his consigliere. Consigliere will give order to the capo. The capo will give order to, you can even have 20 people between John Gatti and the person that does the actual shooting, or 20 people between a Colombian drug lord and person who ships it to Miami, who takes it to, once you're able to link all of them, that person in Colombia will be on the same case with the person cooking crack in California. About 200 of them in one case. That is conspiracy. We credited that when I was in US to Robert Kennedy. So when you have such performance, you cannot now say, why did his brother appoint him? Because he was sharp as a whip. In fact, rumor had it that when they were in law school, he was the one writing for his brother. So what I'm trying to say is, I look at performance. It is when there's lack of performance, we now start looking into other things. So I met Mandaura, and in fairness, I always say it, the man, my brother, is a highly intelligent man. I gave him a 6-page synopsis on what I had of Fowler. In 40 seconds, this man, I didn't know who had gotten to the 3rd page, digested everything and asked me a question on a company called Amni. And we talked about the Amni issue. He now told the person that brought me, take this synopsis to the chairman of FRS. Once he verifies this information, for sake of any margin of error, I will take it to the president. But you know how Nigerians are. Maybe the guy wanted me to pay him money, he didn't do it. But as fate would have it, I made the chairman of FRS. So what I'm trying to say is that there are so many cases, NDDC, you name it, that are just cold cases EFCC has never, even this Akpabio, from the time he was governor, he left. We know what is going on. So this is what we face. Okay, that is why I use the word, I say it's a culture. Okay. Where anybody that comes on board as chairman or acting chairman of EFCC will only impress me if that person does one or two things. One, look into what has happened at that institution before. Look into all these cases like NDDC, all companies. Bring them to book. Then you impress me. I, George Uboh, I will come out and write a commendation commending such person. That is my take on this whole thing.
All right, thank you. Do we have any question from the our guests tonight? I have a team. If you can ask you to unmute yourself and then you ask your questions, please. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Mr. George Uboh. Good to meet you here. It's been a long walk to freedom, so to say. In the year 2015, correct me if I'm wrong, you wrote an open letter to President Muhammadu Buhari, which you published, which I published, and which you also published on a full page in some newspaper. In 2015, I think I'm correct, right?
No, 2016.
Surely 2016. Okay. And I remember you made some powerful recommendations on how to sanitize the EFCC, how to fight corruption, and other sundry issues. Please, I want you to tell us what is the outcome of that open letter. First. Secondly, how would you rate this scale of 1 to 10? How
would I rate who?
This present administration's fight against corruption on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My two questions, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions. Now, the open letter I wrote the president was actually born out of the blueprints I've written. I attended the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, JOS, and the communique was done to the presidency, and that was in 2008. But again, I stumbled into the blueprint President Bush wrote, sent to the Senate, to the Congress, US Congress, that gave birth to the Department of Homeland Security. So I now started doing this whole blueprinting. Actually, to answer your question, I have pitched that blueprint in part or in whole, because if you want, you don't even need to implement it in whole. You can phase it out. But I found out that because it will reveal, or rather, reveal a lot of shenanigans. I recall one serving governor, very close to Buhari, I won't mention his name. When I finished, that was right after Buhari won election. They knew that he was going to be governor because he had that on a cloud. After I made the presentation, because I wanted him to immediately pitch it to Buhari, he said, because this chap I'm talking about owns over 70 homes in Abuja. So when you are talking information and identity database that will capture the identity, the information on the information and identity of all movable and immovable assets. So this chap knows that this will catch up with him. So to answer your question, to implement my recommendation in the fight against corruption, because we live in a country where the bourgeoisie, the oligarchs, are pretty much involved in everything we do, policy-wise. If they want to set up any committee today now, you have the Aliko Dankotes, the former MD of Access Bank. I always accuse Access Bank expunged 4-year statement to EFCC. But this guy has been put. So you have the same people who are going to frustrate such blueprints to now be on the committee to look into such blueprints. So you know he's dead on arrival. So that is what I have been facing. And I pray to God that God sends us a president with the requisite willpower, because that is all they need. Willpower. I always say that I'm not looking for a PhD holder or whatever. I need, the reason I love Reagan, an actor turned president, is that singular phrase, willpower. When Reagan took Gorbachev to Berlin Wall and said, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That is willpower. It's not education. That is all we need. Secondly, what was your second question again? Sorry.
My second question.
To rate the government 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Elombah, it depends on the lens through which you look at it. Why do I say that? I have to be, straight up. The administration, Buhari as a person, has been able to come out to utter, to say something that is unprecedented, unparalleled. Coming out to say you endorse the whistleblower policy, knowing that whistleblowing, in a sense, is going to expose even your friends. It's because of whistleblower policy, the Isa Funtuas may so rest in peace and all that. So coming out to do that, I have to give a bit of kudos to him for that. Coming out to say all federal government funds should go into TSA. And when Malami engaged me to trace funds trapped in financial institutions, this is exactly what caused our problem in the beginning. Because the banks, and I call them the banking sector mafia, went to lobby him to remove that engagement from me. And that was why I said on national TV, the eve of my arrest by DSS, and I quoted the letter I wrote Buhari, my petition against Malami, when I say, sir, while I'm convinced you are not corrupt as a person, I further submit that if you do not meet out the requisite punitive measures against your cabinet members when necessary, you will end up wearing the crown of corruption by omission or inaction as part of your legacy. Because don't tell me you are not corrupt as a person, but your desk is replete with evidence of corruption against your cabinet members, and you don't do anything. My dear, you are corrupt by omission. Because if you go into the history of the word corruption, it wasn't about money. It was about abuse of power. It was when money came into being, after the time of Aristotle and all that, they injected the word bribery and corruption. So it is more of abuse of power. If a minister or a governor wants to steal billions, he's not going to take the cash. He will first of all abuse power, abuse the procurement law, give his friends and cronies shady contracts that will now distill into cash. So abuse of power plays a very important role. That was why when President Jonathan says stealing is not corruption, because he's not eloquent. People didn't understand that. He didn't explain well. So he just got, somebody told him in London about it, but he didn't explain it well. Individual stealing. Corruption is systemic, abuse of power. But if you just go and steal individually, you understand? But he didn't explain it well. So this is what I'm talking about when I was talking about the law of conspiracy. So when you see evidence against your ministers that they are corrupt, you don't do anything, you are equally corrupt by omission. So the fact that as a person, he said he came up with certain policies that to me policies that areas that were not delved into by former presidents. Based on that alone, that is why we even give any mark. If not, if they say it should have been negative, to be honest with you. You understand? So based on that, I will rate it 3. But were you know that he did that, he would have been talking -3.
Thank you very much. That's a very hard one coming on an administration that came on board with the mantra to fight corruption. Yes. And now we are talking of that. Even giving him 3/10 is a very big, is a bonus. It doesn't speak well for this present administration. It is now on his second. It is now on his second term. 1 year has gone. He has only 1 year remaining to redeem himself. And the evidence we are seeing before us, I don't know how far he will be able to go to do that. Thank you very much, Dr. George Uboh, for being our guest tonight. I will have asked my final, I don't know, there is no other person raising up his hand.
No, you can, don't worry, I enjoy talking about this.
Okay,
for a long time. So yeah. Now that you have the opportunity to talk, go ahead and shoot.
We don't have any other hand now. So let me ask this question. I think the coming into being of the ICPC and the EFCC is a very good thing for Nigeria. However, looking at EFCC now, what reform will you recommend to make EFCC a more efficient corruption fighting organization? And do you know personally the newly appointed acting chairman of EFCC, and how would you?
Okay, let me answer 2 1 because that is very simple. No, I don't know him. I never met him.
Okay.
What we need to do, again, I'm a man. I love policy. I love to emulate what is good. You see, we have to go back to the creation of EFCC. I keep saying the powers are sweeping. Make EFCC a purely investigative agency, just like the FBI. You see what always happens between the director of FBI in US and the Attorney General. There is always a tussle. You have power to investigate, I have power to prosecute. It makes a very healthy democracy. If there's anything I love about US, is the impeccable checks and balances that a president, the most powerful president, the most powerful man on earth, will be making phone call. People are listening because that is the blueprint at the White House. No matter how powerful a president is, as Trump was a billionaire before he became president, you cannot change that blueprint. That is checks and balances. That is what I wish for my dear country. Look at something. If there's an anomaly, you correct it. Once we go and remove, I'm not concerned. I was on TV the other day, they say, is it that because police people are always manning the EFCC and because police known to be corrupt? I even told the person that interviewed, I said, if they give you that power, the powers are intoxicating. Do you know what it is to investigate, arrest, prosecute, seize, go through interim forfeiture, go through final forfeiture, then assert what I call perpetual dominion over recovered assets? You can investigate anybody and clamp on their assets. People don't understand that power. So to answer your question, we need to look into the Establishment Act. Make investigative agencies in Nigeria to perform the role of investigation. 1. Maybe I'm on Zoom. I'll call you back. I'm on Zoom. Okay. So now, But there's something you have not said. You see, the issue of EFCC and ICPC, I talked about that in my blueprint. Now, what are the rules of EFCC, ICPC, Public Complaint Commission? I talked about overlapping functions of the executive. It is a very serious business, it's a very serious anomaly in Nigeria, because it creates and runs afoul of one of the cardinals, one of the protections we have as citizens, that is being protected against double jeopardy. In Nigeria, you even have up to quadruple jeopardy. DPO will arrest you. IG monitoring unit will arrest you on the same offense. EFCC will arrest you on the same offense. In fact, this is the first thing I talked about in my blueprint, because that was what Bush recognized, not in the context of double jeopardy, but in the context of overlapping function. George Bush said after 9/11, he called the brains of US. What are we doing wrong, guys? Let's beef up what we have. They now found out that under the old system, security agencies were fighting each other. They say if a ship is coming into US under the old system, you have about 4, 5, up to 6 agencies that will have jurisdiction, from US Coast Guard to US Wildlife to Customs to you name it, Navy and all that. Instead of all of them to synergize, share database, they will be fighting each other, and in so doing, a dangerous person and a weapon will slip into Nigeria. Now, when I was writing my blueprint, same thing happened. One morning, I was watching Channels TV. This had to be 2011 or 12. And Channels TV was showing in Edo State, Nigerian Army, Nigerian Police, Civil Defense Corps, and a local security outfit were dogging it out on the streets, because there were some pipeline vandals, some pipeline vendors. They were all arguing who has the jurisdiction to arrest these boys vandalizing the pipeline. I sent a message to Mahmoud Bogun, Chamberlain, and I called Smart Ademi, Chairman FCT, called the retired General Wushishi. Was it Wushishi? No, Magoro, who was Chairman, Senate Committee on National Security. I said, watch, sir. This is one of the biggest problem we have in Nigeria. Nobody knows who investigates what. Why do I say this? This was a public debate. What crimes do ICPC investigate, and what crimes do EFCC investigate? You will see that the same time I was writing my blueprint, if you recall, when Oshomole was governor of Edo State, one of Oshomole's aides was killed. DSS arrested some suspects. Nigerian police force arrested some suspects. So certainly somebody has been arrested who didn't commit the offense. So these are things I look into. Policies. Incongruent with what happens in the countries we emulate. FBI is FBI anywhere in the world. I mean, anywhere in the US. You have, of course, local offenses where your local police or whatever. But whenever a criminal uses phone to talk from New York to like Atlanta, they say that it's interstate. You cross the interstate lines, FBI comes in. If you recall when you used to watch Dillinger, Babyface, although in the 1930s in US, when they will commit, these are notorious armed robbers, they will rob a bank in one state. As soon as they cross the state line, they'll be looking at the police. Police cannot cross because you're going to need extradition from that governor. In fact, that was what I was telling El-Rufai about creating state police. It has its advantages, it has it. So that was when FBI now came. Once you cross this state to this state, it becomes a federal offense. So we need to look into this thing. So that is why I'm not impressed with EFCC, ICPC, because they are there fighting, committing double, triple, and quadruple jeopardy. there are so many Nigerians that have been arrested for the same offense by different agencies. How do you reconcile that? Because I am first of all for, I've never believed that somebody has to use illegality to fight illegality. So any law enforcement agency has to be above board. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. We have a hand now. Dr. George Davidson, can you please unmute yourself and ask your questions and make a comment? You can also start your video if you want to. Unmute yourself, please, George. Yeah. No, you are still muted. Yes, thank you very much.
Good. Thank you for being here. You asked a question as in touching on the current acting chairman. Yes. To our guest. He's been very explicit in all his explanation. And I have come in contact, like what he said, everything is on point. What our guest said, everything is perfectly on point. But I have also come in contact, haven't written so much to EFCC. I know the previous chairman. I know the acting chairman. I want to bring a case scenario on board. We are looking at the antecedents of from Ribadu to Waziri and then Lamodi. And these are people, they are all webbed one way or the other. They said directors have been sacked. 12 directors have been on suspension, rather. They were the suspension, not sack, please. And then this is the former director of operation who knows everything about the in and out of EFCC. Some of us were privileged, like 3 weeks to this arrest of Magu. Some of us were privileged to know all this. And now he is sitting there. Is it that he is so innocent? Let me give a case scenario on what he did that I was there live. The acting director, the acting chairman who was the director of operation. A lady impersonated EFCC, duped people of 12 million naira in the guest offices and EFCC staff. Eventually, we petitioned, clients came to us, we petitioned the lady, and she was arrested on the directive of Magu. It was then my eye opened that within the system, there are a lot of fashions that it's not every case they actually prosecute, even if they have ample evidence. Just like our guest said. In this case now, this director of operation, a particular staff, I'm going to call them, Sadiq Mutar, in the director of operations office, single-handedly turned the whole case, despite the overwhelming evidence of an EFCC staff, with all the ample evidence on her WhatsApp, on her Facebook database, everything, they changed it. The director of operation looked away. This is an example. $890 million US was assigned by Global Fund to Nigeria on malaria, HIV, and TB, then COVID-19. Now, I want to take us back. Ebola Fund with Global Fund, I personally wrote petition to EFCC with ample evidence. Guess what? The file, as I talk to you now, after all allegations, it led to the sack of many people in Ministry of Health in 2016 by this president. Guess what? That file got lost in the current acting chairman's table. I say it unequivocally. So what are we saying? It's a system. I love what our guests say, that we are to fight a system and not just about individual. But if you also look in the long run, individual constitute to a system. There is no punitive measure. Like one of the last questionnaires said, Tim, it's a long walk to freedom. It's a long walk to freedom. A very long one. I don't know. It's now become a drama, whereby as we are coming out of a case, it became like a soap opera to engage Nigerians, undiscerning Nigerians. So our guests, I will encourage you, and I thank you for your doggedness. There's no going back. We are in it together, and let's look forward and see if at the inception, before this program kickstarted, he said in Galatians, let me go spiritual a little, knowing a sin, a thing that is sin, knowing that a thing is a sin, and you don't do anything itself, it's a sin. So we will be talking, we dodge bullets, we keep been arrested every now and then. We sleep in the cell. I slept in the cell for 4 months. From January 22nd till 9th of April, I was in cell, just like my namesake said, the guest. So we know they are anti, but I think we pray that we will be saying it, even if that is the last duty we own Nigeria. So that's just it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. Before we look for our guest's response, we also have another hand, Adefila Kamal. Please unmute yourself. And you can also start your video. Mr. Kamal, unmute yourself, please. Mr. Kamal, if you can unmute yourself, please. Adefila Kamal. He's not responding. Okay, let's well, we are talking about okay, Mr. Kamal is not responding. Please, our guests will be rounding this discussion up now. I don't know whether this question I'm about to ask, there is this allegation that the present secretary of the EFCC, he has been sacked now. The former secretary to Magu was seconded to him by our president, vice president, Osinbajo. Do you have any information about that, or is there any connection between that is the political tussle in the EFCC involving Osinbajo and the Magu, that Magu being Osinbajo's candidate, and that the sacked EFCC, his former secretary, his former chief of staff, was sent to him from Lagos by Magu? Is there any truth to that allegation? And why would you think these past 12 directors EFCC were sacked after the suspension of Magu? Do you have anything to say on that, please? Oh, did you omit?
Mute myself. Okay. You were asking me about. Sorry, I didn't hear you about the vice president and the EFCC.
Okay, there is this allegation that Magu's former chief of staff, or is it his former secretary, was seconded to him by the vice president, that the secretary worked with the vice president in Lagos. So when the vice president becomes when Buhari won the election, the vice president worked for his transfer to become Magu's chief of staff, not secretary. Sorry, I think the name is I think the name just get out of my head now.
Talking the secretary to EFCC. The secretary to EFCC.
Yes.
Came from VP's old law firm.
Yes.
Okay. I know the matter very well. You see, EFCC, that is the Rebadu block of EFCC, if I may say that. Why do I say the Rebadu block? People don't understand that EFCC itself, Rebadu, Lamode, Magu, the trio. When Farida came, Farida wanted to break that block because if you recall, Tinubu made Rebadu chairman of ACN. That was when, in my opinion, that tacit understanding came about, and Rebadu came up publicly to say that he has never found anything against Tinubu. So Tinubu and his boys became untouchable by the EFCC. So let's have that historical background. Now, when Farida was chairman, I have that report. Farida set up a 5-man committee to look into the recoveries by his predecessor, Ribadu, before she came on board, and the management of recovered assets. So when she came to say, Ribadu, tell Nigerians the billions recovered you did not document, that report, I have it. It's a damning report. That report went into to talk about, which I've not even delved into that, my evidence. How EFCC grossly, I'm coming to your original question. I want to give you how EFCC grossly undervalues recovered assets, then sell to their cronies. Emmanuel Nwude's asset, one of them, Fepsimore, a prime property there by Wuse Market. Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know the relationship between Tinubu and Oshibajo. And if you recall, the same Oshibajo came out to tell Nigerians when Magu was not cleared by the Senate to pave way for his to being substantive chairman instead of acting. Oshibajo came out to say that Magu can be in an acting capacity in perpetuity, that nothing says he must be confirmed. Of course, the secretary, I'm trying to remember his name. I even discussed.
Falanke.
Yes, you are right. Okay. So that one is there. You know, we have all that intelligence. He's one of the people that have been recommended to be suspended, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he has been suspended.
Yes. You know, so, but what was your question anyway? Let's not digress.
That is it? Well, I think you have just confirmed that whether that Falanke, if I can confirm that is his name, was seconded to Magu by the Vice President Osinbajo, thereby indicating that there may have been a relationship between Magu's faction of EFCC and Osinbajo and Tinubu himself.
Magu's faction of EFCC and Tinubu's faction?
Well, there's a relationship between Magu, when Magu as the EFCC acting chairman,
yes,
and the Vice President Osinbajo.
We know that romance was there, and you know, even we had through the grapevine that Tinubu made it possible for Magu. You know, we have all that intelligence, but be that as it may, you know, because of the more damning issues and evidence we have, those ones, to me, they are just, you know, there are so many things surrounding that place. It's just, but to second to answer Dr. Davidson's listen about personality and institution, I wasn't saying after I have 4 personalities, any personality that enters there, I have to fight because that personality bears the brunt of what, you know, happens. But I'm just saying that the root cause of the problem at EFCC is actually the institution, that the institution stinks.
Yes.
It's a systemic thing. So whether if you bring anybody there, I have other evidence of what even goes on there. You know, I mean, like when they were saying Magu boys, they are very correct. You know, there are people that are there that don't see what, and those are the people, and in doing that, they now create this disgruntled disciple. Because those were the ones that gave me the evidence and are still giving me evidence to date. You know, so there are people there that have been there from inception, but they still not seeing any action. so you know.
Olani Pekun. Yes, Olani Pekun, that Olukoyede Olani Pekun, the EFCC secretary, who worked as a lawyer in Osinbajo's chambers in Lagos. Once Osinbajo became VP, he moved to the EFCC as Ibrahim's Magu's chief of staff, and then later made the secretary of EFCC. So, well, like we have been saying, we are more concerned with the substance rather than personalities. But as also you pointed out, it is the personalities that determines the substance. It's been a very wonderful evening. We've been further enlightened with regards to what happens in the EFCC. The thing is that Nigeria's corruption, someone said that there is corruption all over the world. In every country of the world, there is corruption. But what we have in Nigeria is more than corruption. We have wanton impunity. Wanton impunity, looting with impunity. That is more than corruption. So EFCC is saddled with too much heavy task. And like you said, it requires political willpower for anyone to use EFCC to work. And also, like you pointed out, EFCC is not made independent. In the United States, you talk about we can have the FBI conduct an independent investigation without recourse to the US president. But someone told me, look, Daniel, what happened to EFCC is that it is not possible for Buhari to read in the newspapers that the EFCC is investigating a political heavyweight. And like you also confirmed, Magu will first of all take the file to Buhari, say, look, we have this report, and then Buhari will now tell them whether to investigate or not. That is part of the reform that we would like to see. EFCC should be independent, even have the capacity to investigate anybody in Nigeria, like the FBI does. But until that reform is done, it will always be difficult, no matter who is there, to actually fight the war against corruption to its logical conclusion. Do you have any concluding words, 30 seconds before we round up? In summary, what would you have to say with regards to this administration's fight against corruption, the EFCC scandal, and the NDDC scandal, which we discussed tonight? In 30 seconds, please.
Well, I've done my rating on the administration. I really don't think anything can happen, considering the fact that the administration is now winding up. We just have to collectively do what is needful to make sure that the incoming government does better and calls into question all the shenanigans we've been talking about. But for this government, I don't think so. No.
You don't think so?
I'm in the system. I know. I don't think so.
No.
Because the people who are in the position to do something cannot. There are certain things that will not disclose because that is what is playing out. But I'll say to the extent that when Malami called me, we met December 22nd, 2015 in his office when he was going to engage me and said he discussed my matter. The first thing I told him that your biggest problem will be the EFCC. Make sure you are not caught wanting, because EFCC's boss's number one objective is to make sure that you don't exercise that supervisory power. It is an insult for Malami to write Magu to hand over files, and he says that you don't the grave for yourself. I hope you know that the sitting Attorney General in Nigeria has the sole power to initiate prosecution and dismiss prosecution. But we have never had any Attorney General that exercises that, because once they find that yourself you are not clean, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So to answer your question regarding this administration's fight against corruption, I don't think it's going to happen the way we would want it to. All we need to do is just pray, hope and pray for the incoming government to do it. And that is just my take on it. I mean,
right. On that note, we thank you very much, Dr. George Uboh, the founder and chief executive of George Uboh Whistleblowers Network. With regard, I will have the name of your other company, which is doing the actual work. I've been able to get it in my
Panic PASS, PASS, Panic Alert Security Systems. PASS.
Panic Alarm Security System. We will say thank you for the. We will say we wish you more success in your efforts to investigate and expose corruption in the system, and hoping that hopefully in the future we will have a government with the willpower to actually look at the problem bedeviling the EFCC and find ways of making the EFCC more effective in its fight against corruption. Thank you very much once again. And we thank all our guests tonight who have made out the time to be with us. We thank you and hope that you will still be able to be with us next time as we discuss another topic. Tomorrow, we will have another guest to discuss another political issue, this time not about corruption, around this time again by 7 p.m. But that will be about the major problem bedeviling Nigeria, about restructuring, whether it is Nigeria at a crossroad. Should we now disembarment? Is this the solution? So that we have another guest tomorrow who will discuss that topic. And if you're able to join in, please join us again. Once again, thank you, Dr. George Uboh, for being our guest tonight. And we look forward to having you again in the future to discuss about your main passion, investigating and exposing corruption.
Thank you very much. And thank everybody else, Team Elombah, George Davison. I see one, Chido, Odnoma, Mr. Ozoma, Okezie. Thank you all very much. I wish you had contributed, though. I wanted you to, I like to be questioned. I like to be critical. I like to hear from people. I mean, that's the kind of person I am. But maybe next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good night.
Good night. Okay.
Cheers, man.